So I've been engaged in an ongoing debate with my lead playtester about one of the core mechanics of the game, which is the action system. And I want to put this out there because, maybe I'm thinking about this incorrectly. Maybe this is something that just fundamentally needs to change about the game. And if it is, I need to make that change sooner rather than later because it's going to have rippling effects on all other parts of the game. But his basic argument is that certain things that a hero can do during the turn should be free and automatic. So for instance, exploring should just be something that happens automatically. It shouldn't cost an action to explore. How the game works right now, you spend an action to move. 1, 2, 3, you can move up to 4 spaces per action, and that's the end of your turn. And then on your next turn, you're at the edge of a tile, so you can explore. So on turn 2, you explore. And then that's it. And then on turn 3, your next turn, you can move. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. Now, what he is suggesting is that the explorer should be automatic. It should be intuitive and automatic, and it should just happen. It shouldn't cost an action to explore. So what he's suggesting is that you move, and you end movement at the edge of a tile, so you automatically place a new tile. And then that would be the end of your turn. And let's say there's a discovery token right here. He's also suggesting that since the discovery token is adjacent to the hero, you should immediately be able to flip it over, which you currently can do for free, but then you should immediately be able to pick it up, equip it, stow it. He's also suggesting that a lot of the manage equipment actions should be free as well. It shouldn't cost a turn to draw a sword or put away a spellbook. Should I go that direction? And if so, what would that entail? I think I would need to go back through all the actions in the book and figure out which ones intuitively make sense to be automatic and free, and which ones intuitively make sense to still cost. He doesn't think they should all be free. He thinks things like casting a spell should still cost an action. So in order to figure out if I need to change my action system, I just want to take a look at why I built the action system that I built. I needed to abstract and quantize space and time for the game. So space is pretty easy. You just break space down into a grid. That way you can move your heroes over the grid, and then you can break the grid into tiles, and games have been doing this forever. And then quantizing time really comes down to like how you want to break down the player doing stuff into discrete chunks, and then also give the world a chance to update in between each chunk of players doing stuff. So one thing to note is that I built this game from the ground up to be solitaire. So when I originally devised my action system, I was not thinking in terms of multiplayer gameplay, which I think might be part of the discrepancy between how I've been thinking about the action system and how other players that I've been playtesting with think about the action system, because they're all experiencing it from the point of view of a multiplayer game, whereas the majority of the playtesting for this game has been solitaire, and the rules are written specifically for solitaire. So I just want to throw that disclaimer out there. So on the most basic level, you've got your turns here, and you just need to break them down into player does stuff, end of turn, player does stuff, end of turn. You need player does stuff, and then world update, or monsters do stuff, and then player does stuff, and then monsters do stuff. And then you need to figure out how you want to quantize each chunk of player does stuff. You could further subdivide that down into player action, player action, player action. So this would be like, 3 actions per turn, and then monsters do stuff, end of turn. A lot of games do this. I mean, Runebound, one of my favorite adventure games, does this. The biggest problem I have with the system is that I often lose track, especially when I'm playing solitaire, of how many actions I've performed. Like in Runebound 3rd edition, it costs 2 actions to engage in combat, and sometimes combat can last 15 or 20 minutes. And then when it's over, it's like, oh wait, did I perform an action before that combat? And you just kind of get confused about where you were. It's also confusing when some things cost more than 1 action, because you have to kind of keep track of like, oh wait, that costs an action, that costs 2 actions, that doesn't cost any action. So I like an action system. 3 actions is a little bit busy, especially when you're playing solitaire. It's like unnecessary bookkeeping to try to keep track of how many actions you've spent. And so that's when I started simplifying. I was like, well, what if there were only 2 actions and then the monsters go, and then 2 actions and then the monsters go? And then at that point, I was like, yeah, but the hero's doing too much stuff in between each monster update. And also it's just unnecessary bookkeeping. So I iterated on that again, and I was like, okay, well, what if we just simplified this as much as humanly possible? What if you only got 1 action? So you do something and then the monsters go, and then you do something and then the monsters go. And I kind of like this, especially for solitaire play. It almost doesn't matter how many actions you're keeping track of. It's just like, okay, you're going to do a thing, and then the monsters are going to do a thing, and then you're going to do a thing, and then the monsters are going to do a thing. And so that's how I arrived at like my 1 action system. And I feel like it's worked really well. So then all I had to do was come up with a list of actions, things the hero can do. And in the rule book, it states very clearly like what those actions are and how you perform them. And you've got carry, cast spell, clear, climb, concoct, decipher, detrap, disguise, dodge, drag, drain, drink, drop, equip item, explore, heal, jump, manage gear, move, negotiate, pick lock, pick up, persuade, revive, smash, search, sneak, steal, stow, swim, turn subhumans, turn undead, throw, use item. Now, some of these actions like stow item, equip item, pick up, drop, they're actually just part of a manage equipment action. I just broke them down so that it's easier to look up, but here it basically just says like manage gear. Jeff's basic premise is that some of these things should not cost. Like if you're a thief and you walk up to a door, like maybe picking the lock should just be something that happens automatically. He didn't specifically call that out, but he did call out picking up discovery items, exploring spaces, managing gear. He feels like those things just intuitively should happen automatically, and they shouldn't cost time in the game. I think part of his concern comes from the fact that we play multiplayer and the game wasn't really designed for multiplayer, but the game is fun multiplayer. So I want to, if I need to fix the game to make it more conducive to multiplayer, then that's something I should do. But I think what's happening is, let's say Jeff is hero 1 and he moves and he ends his movement at the edge of a tile and he wants to explore. So now he's got to wait. He's got to wait for this hero to do something. He's got to wait for this hero to do something. And then the monsters go. And then finally he gets to explore, like after all these things have happened. Whereas before, it would just be like you move, the monster goes, and then you explore when you're playing solitaire. And that just feels to me, feels very intuitive. But in a multiplayer game, it's kind of a buzzkill to get to the edge of a tile and just sit there and wait for your turn to come back around, or to go to a discovery item and flip it over and then just be staring at it while all this is happening before you can pick it up. And then you pick it up and that's the end of your turn. So I understand what he's getting at and I don't disagree with it. But the question is, should I change the current system? And if so, like how? There's only 3 ways to do this. Every action should cost like it is now. Some of the actions should cost and some shouldn't, which would create a lot of exceptions in the rule book, or have no actions cost, like you move and then you can just do something for free every time. And I think any of these systems are valid. I was trying to go with simple global rules with the fewest exceptions, and so I just decided to have everything you can do cost a turn. It just seemed very simple, one rule to cover all cases. I think if I went with a system where some actions cost and some are free, it gets a little more convoluted. Like, I'm gonna have to go through this huge list of actions that I just read and figure out which one of these should be automatic and which one shouldn't. I would need to specify that in the book, and I think there would be a lot more sort of looking up, like, oh wait, that's free, oh wait, that costs, which is fine. I mean, a lot of games have free actions and actions that cost, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just different than the way I've been thinking about it. And then obviously I could say, you know what, like, none of these actions cost except for move. And so you do a move, and then it's like, oh, now I'm gonna detrap, and that's free. Or you do a move, and then it's like, okay, now I'm gonna drink something, that's free. Or you do a move, and it's like, okay, now I'm gonna cast a spell, and that's free. So that's where I'm at. It's like, if this wasn't such an ongoing debate, I wouldn't even post this video, but because it's been such an ongoing debate, I feel like I want to give some feedback. When I'm playing solitaire and I do it this way, it's almost like a real-time game. The turns almost dissolve at that point into just a real-time continuum, because I'm just like, I go, the monster's going, I'm going, the monster's going. I'm not keeping track of actions. I'm not figuring out what costs and what's free. If everything costs, then it's almost like everything's free, you know? If there's only one action per turn, it's almost like there's no actions per turn. And then I think Jeff's system, where you could move and then immediately flip like a new tile or explore a new tile for free, that would be very similar to two actions. Basically, like, you do a move and then you flip a tile and then the monsters go. And then you do another move and then you blibbity blah, and then the monsters go. So having automatic actions is similar to having two actions in a way. And our very first playtest that we ever did, we actually had a two action system before I continued to streamline and update it into a one action system. So I don't know what the right answer is. I'm not trying to say that I'm right and Jeff is wrong. If anything, I'm like, I want to fix this if it's broken, or if it just feels unintuitive, or if the one action system where everything costs an action, if it's just a buzzkill, then I want to change it.